For our episode this week, I'm super pumped to have a friend of mine on here as our guest for our live and for our podcast. Lucas Mattiello. Lucas and I met about 6 years ago or so. As I get older, dates and times seem to kind of get confused for me, but it's been at least 6 years. We met up at one meetup or another there in Vancouver, where Lucas is based. And we keep just running into each other at all these different events, and different parts of our lives kind of kept meshing together. So I thought that Lucas was a perfect, there's a lot of synergy here to have him involved in our podcast and what we're doing. I'll just read the bio that you sent us, Lucas, and then I'll turn it over to you to kind of fill in the blanks and complete your introduction.
Sounds good.
Well, you wouldn't expect someone diagnosed with an anxiety condition to become a public speaking trainer, but that's exactly what Lucas did. He uses his experience of living with anxiety for 15 years, stress management techniques, and training as a certified professional coach to empower entrepreneurs to speak with confidence. Lucas is an internationally renowned communications trainer that specializes in empowering entrepreneurs with the tools, techniques, and experiences to authentically share their message confidently and effectively. He has been featured in Forbes, is a best-selling author, and is an official TEDx speaking coach. Awesome. Sure. Lucas, welcome.
Well, hey, thank you.
Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you for having me.
So,
great. So
fill in the blanks a little bit from your bio. Who is Lucas?
Yes, we want to hear who you are in your own words.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really a lot of it. But who am I? I'm a guy who struggled with anxiety and panic attacks from 14 to 29. I've had a lot of shame around it. I thought I was crazy. I didn't know other people had it as well. And when I was, actually about 10 years ago, it was 2010. Around this time, I got laid off from my job, and everything kind of fell apart at that point because I felt like I lost my identity. And that's where, with the job loss, the anxiety got really, really bad, and the panic attacks got very frequent. And I ended up I went to my doctor, and he's like, look, you need to get some professional help. And I ended up in the mental hospital. And there I was diagnosed with panic disorder, and I started a whole journey of stress management recovery. And it started me on this new path of, okay, just face, your fears. And the one thing that changed was I was like, how many people are struggling and they think they're alone? And so I started a blog called Level Up Living. And from that blog, just sharing and speaking, it's people just related to it, and it's built up to where it is today.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when you and I met around 6 years ago, you were, quite a ways along the road on your journey to where you are now. Probably 4 or 5 years into that.
Sure.
And I say journey because I know that it's a never ending road. It's not like, I'm finally here. It's not a destination. It's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
But just, I hope this isn't a bad question or a dumb question, but when you say, you talk about anxiety.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a pretty good grip on what that is, but just for anybody listening in or watching in, everybody gets anxious about stuff.
Sure.
You've got an appointment and you're stuck in traffic and you're going to be late. The stress comes up, you start sweating, the whole thing. But I know, and maybe you can articulate it better than I ever could, the difference between that and the difference between having anxiety, like having an anxiety disorder, or I hate the word disorder, but
yeah. I mean, it's just the categorization of it. That's
which just really irritates me.
Well, it's very disempowering, and
Yes.
that's the whole thing. Actually, a guy I worked with in mental health, Brent Seal, he would always say, he would never use the word mental illness. He used mental fitness. And he's like, it's like going to the gym, and you got to create your workout plan and go with it. I always thought that was a good kind of framing of it. But with panic attacks and the anxiety condition, it gets to a point where it's just very frequent. And so there's a difference. Anxiety is more the feeling of dread, of uncertainty. It's more low level. You just feel off. Panic attack, it feels like you're dying. And you can be anywhere, driving in traffic, and you just feel like you're going to die. And it just takes over, and it's all in your mind. And so that's the difficult part, because logically, there's nothing wrong. There's no threat. but your body and your mind takes over. And so just
Uh-huh.
leading with that. And oftentimes I look at it as like stress builds up, that leads to some anxiety, and that anxiety builds up, and then that can lead to the panic attacks.
Okay.
And so,
Uh-huh.
that was a whole journey that I had to go through.
It is very interesting to me, Lucas, because I guess here in the Philippines, from where I am, this is kind of like new topic. It's not new; everybody knows about it, but it's not being spoken of. Like as it's not as rampant maybe as it is, or widely, people are not educated enough to know the difference between I just feel stressed. Sometimes it's just like a habit or just a reaction, or just for you to say whenever you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed with something, you're going to say, I'm stressed, I'm having anxiety or something. But actually the difference between you just felt it and the other feeling of that you need some professional help, it's maybe people don't know the difference. And this is good that we have you on here to explain that a little bit for us and educate our listeners. And for those people who are watching on Facebook, especially now that we are experiencing enhanced quarantine, community quarantine, and people would feel isolated. People will feel disconnected. And especially for those people who lost their job, I couldn't imagine how they are feeling right now. And then, you lost your job, you can't go out, you can't see your friends, so they feel alone. What do you think? How can you help them?
I mean, I feel with this, you bring up some really great points there, Pam, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the lack of education around it, that's the first part. That's the biggest obstacle, because even when I was 14, back then, schools, they didn't talk about mental health. It was the whole, don't do drugs. And so I was there, I'm there in wrestling practice, and I keep feeling like I'm going to die in the middle of practice. And I run out, go to the washroom, come back, and the same thing happens. So not knowing, for me, it was the lack of knowing what was really going on, but then also the shame. And that's a big piece. The shame,
especially as a teenager too. It's everything.
I guess maybe that's why it's not being talked about as often as it should to educate people. It's because there's a connotation when you know someone who's having anxiety. It's like, is he crazy? Is he
exactly.
Something like that? So let's educate our people who are watching right now.
Yeah. Okay.
It's I had a long career in emergency communications, and we would deal day in and day out with people with various degrees and various types of mental health issues. And it's funny, even as professionals and dealing with people on the phone all day long that are having some sort of mental health crisis, or something's going on, or somebody in their world is having a mental health crisis, that as individuals and as people in there was still such a huge stigma around mental health wellness. People would go through, horrific events as a 911 call taker, or police dispatcher, fire dispatcher, ambulance dispatcher, dealing with these horrific events, but there was, in the beginning, very little thought given to the effect of those things. And eventually they brought in a peer team, which, always as managers, we were always there to try and support our staff and check in on them, make sure everything, they were getting what they needed. But we brought in a peer support team that made a huge difference. People were infinitely more comfortable talking to their peers about something that was going on in their world than they would be with their manager. Funny how that works. And that's made a huge, huge difference. And I really think that, like, I envision a day in the workplace and in society where people think no more about, hey, I've got an appointment with my therapist, my psychologist, my psychiatrist, or whatever, as they would of, my shoulder's kind of sore, I'm going to go see the doctor. People give no second thought about that. Or, I've got a cough that won't go away, or I'm not feeling good, I'm going to go to the doctor. And that's perfectly socially acceptable. But if people are like, hey, you know, I've been feeling really anxious and really, really kind of down lately, I think I'm going to go to see a doctor. And people are like, oh, hey, have a nice day. I got to go.
Yes.
And I don't know, it's going to take, you know, hopefully not generations for us to come around to that. But, you know, you have a friend that's in a car accident and they break their leg and everybody's like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry. I'm going to bring you food. And can I sign your cast? And, you know, can I get you to fluff you a pillow? But as soon as somebody says, you know, I have an anxiety issue or I've been diagnosed with depression, it's like, oh, hey, you know, I hope that works out really well for you. I'm going to go over here. And we're going to turn this into a whole mental health thing, which wasn't really the intent. But as somebody who's been on the other side of that, what can people's peer groups, their support groups, how can they better accommodate or better interact in a situation like that? We all know what to do when somebody's got a cold, you know, chicken soup and a blanket.
Yes.
What do we do if a family member or a friend comes to me and says, hey, you know, I just wanted to let you know I've been diagnosed with this or I'm having this issue? How can we normalize that?
You know, I think so. Even with myself, when I did my first video on YouTube talking about it, I didn't tell any of my family members, and I have a large family of cousins and uncles. And I remember when I first told them, I was very afraid that, you know, I'd be rejected and they'd make fun of you and all that stuff. And I got the opposite situation where people were, you know, what was most helpful was they were saying, okay, well, how can we help? Like, what do you need?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And you know, that it's as simple as that. It's that control. And, you know, it's something that you can overcome. But when you take away that shame, because that shame element, you're isolated already. And then you add in shame and the feeling of helplessness. And then for myself, it was looking at other people. And, you know, when I lost my job, you add this in and then I'm like, wow, the whole world is moving ahead and I'm stuck and everyone's getting ahead of me. And so then all those factors compound together. And so really, I feel that if, you know, this is you have that community group where you say, all right, well, okay, like just that non-reactive. All right, what do you need? Because that's the only thing. When the person knows that they can actually open up, that's it's gonna take that edge off.
Right. It's huge. It's and I hope that, you know, in my generation, in our generation, that things really do start to change around that.
It will.
And I think companies are becoming more progressive and more accepting of that. I know one of the big things with our benefits program that we had there was we got basically unlimited sessions with you know, a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever was deemed appropriate.
Excellent.
And that was pretty much wide open. Like, you know, if you need to go once and unload and everything's good, that's great. If you need to go every week for, you know, the rest of your career, that's good too. So the company was really starting to change, and I hope that is becoming more so. And it's something as a small business owner, Pam and I are very cognizant of. You know, we try and check in with all of our people on a loose basis, but certainly with our first layer of management and support. We're checking in with them, not just specifically on that, but we're having those conversations. And our team, Pam, I think, is very open to those kind of conversations. So just to kind of move forward a little bit, Lucas, sorry, we kind of got bogged down there a little bit. I would love to hear, and I know that our listeners and our viewers would love to hear more about your story, how you went from.
Yes. You know, is it the reason why you transitioned? I mean, I don't know your history from what do you do before you are a coach, but did that was played a part of what you do right now? No,
absolutely not. Had zero connection. My background, I bartended for many years. I worked at a bank, worked in finance. Then I got laid off from my job, and then I started this path.
So what drove you to do public speaking and empowering entrepreneurs? Yeah,
you know, what happened was when I went through my personal situation, and then I entered a stress management recovery program, started changing my life, and I started that blog on levelupliving.com, which, you know, 10 years later, that's my business still. It's interesting how the first domain I ever bought, I've stuck with it. And what happened was I was just out there sharing my story and helping other people, but I would have anxiety talking about my anxiety. And I'm like, oh man, this is ironic. And so
Comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, I had to use, because so it was one thing to start getting comfortable in my personal life, but then it's another to get up in front of a room of strangers and start sharing very personal details, and there's a heavy charge there. So I started to implement my stress management tools into my public speaking so I can calm my nerves down and get confident in that state. And that's what started this whole career, where people are like, hey, I want to be able to get up there and do that. And then I started a training program based on that.
Hey, awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So it's, I think, the experience that you had and the skills that you learned, going through the stress management and that, I see that as being really, really important for what you're training now and the work that you're doing. And I know that, the last several years you've been working, and one of the things in your bio is as a TEDx speaking coach.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine a speaking engagement with more stress perhaps than a TEDx stage.
And it is only for 15 minutes, right? 15, 18, I think. Yeah. I mean, how do you compress everything that you want to talk about? Because for sure, with your experience and with your passion, you would like to share as much as you can, but it's like, I'm limited to just 18. How do you prepare for that?
Pam, I'm actually going through that right now. I was supposed to have my TEDx talk May 9th. So in just over 2 weeks, I was supposed to do my talk in Las Vegas, but because of this whole, coronavirus, that got pushed to mid-September. And so it was interesting going through it, where I'm sitting there going, how do I condense it? And I wrote, you're supposed to have around, say, 1,700 words. The first one I turned in had 4,000 words. And I'm like, okay, because it's just not a lot of time. And I've had to go through this journey of just condensing it, but getting really clear on the point. And a lot of my own fears and insecurities have come up. It's been interesting even in the preparation, because I'm sitting there thinking, this isn't really like, I have way better information that I can share than this. But I have a very limited time. I have a very limited time frame. So it's condensing it, boiling it down to like one key point and one direction. So that's the biggest thing, is that, looking at all the information a person has and just condensing it to like, what's the one thing that you want them to take away at the end? That's how I've been doing it.
Right.
I look up to those speakers at TEDx because, when I watch their videos, the way they speak, it's really amazing. I had a chance to speak in front of an audience last year, twice already. I got invited for a Freedom Summit talk in front of digital nomads. Okay. And then the second conference was David and I got invited. We talked in front of, aspiring freelancers or freelancers already, and with a bunch of other speakers as well. But I was given how many minutes? I think I was on stage for an hour, and I feel like I wasn't able to tell or relay my message completely. But you, Lucas, you are doing TEDx for 15, 18 minutes. So that's amazing. I mean, for someone to inspire a lot in just little time, that's for me, that's amazing.
Well, let's check in at the end of September. We'll know
if it's going to happen.
I'm not going to accept the accolades before. I'm like, we'll see what happens with it. But
we know you're going to do a great job with it.
I believe that's going to be the case. So we'll see.
And I just kind of not a little off the track, but do you think that doing what you do for a business, for your career, is that going to help you in being a TEDx speaker, or do you actually see it as a hindrance because you're so hyper aware of all of those things?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I'll tell you this: when I had some nerves kick up pretty heavy around January, when I was still getting ready for the May date, and the nerves were thinking about the expectations that people are going to have on me, because even I'm going through it there's a group of us, and they're like, "Oh, well, you're going to do amazing." I'm like, "Why?" Like, well, because you train people to get on stage. Okay, but just because I do that doesn't mean that I'm going to be amazing. And then I just felt all this pressure, and I started to think about even negative comments that could come up on YouTube once it's out there. Right? People saying, "Wow, this guy is not that confident. Look at him. Who is he?" and all this narrative was just kicking up, and it was something that I had to go through to just sit with it and go, okay, this is the real fear here, and sit with it, and because here's the thing: in order to inspire, you have to be in a position to possibly embarrass yourself, and because that requires putting yourself out there. And so that was the piece that I had to come back with. It's like, well, people have their opinions, and I can't control what they say. But if I give up on my dream, or I don't go into it fully because I'm afraid of what some commenters might say, then I'm robbing myself, but I'm also robbing the people that could be inspired by this. And so I had to go through that.
I love it.
Interesting.
I love it.
It's funny you say that about criticism. And I just, a couple of days ago, I saw a quote. I don't know if it was on LinkedIn or on Instagram or Facebook, but I saved it to my desktop. And it says, some of the best advice I've been given: don't take criticism from people you would never go to for advice.
Makes sense.
And it's just, it hit me enough that I actually, right click and saved it. And I've got it sitting on my desktop, and I look at it every day since I found this. And it's so true that we're so concerned about, the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments or whatever, the negativity, not the positive stuff, where we're all looking for the positive.
Sure.
But and we're so crushed when the negative stuff happens. But if you put it into perspective of, who are you? Like, really, who are you? Why should I care what you think, good or bad? We're all looking for that confirmation bias. We want people to tell us that we did a great job, or that we're handsome or beautiful or whatever. But as soon as the negative hits, it crushes us so much. But really, who is the person that's crushing us? And, I personally, my opinion of online, those really negative, out of the blue comments is, how horrible are things going in your life right now that you feel the need to tear down somebody that you've never met and have no clue who they are outside of just this very narrow glimpse that you've gotten. So it's, I think I'm going to make that my wallpaper for my background on my computer for a little while.
I think if you are so passionate about with what you do, like what you do, Lucas, you want to empower people. You want to empower entrepreneurs, and you just want to share what you've been through and use that to inspire a lot of people. I think once you're focused with your passion, it doesn't matter whoever criticizes you or whatever comment they have. You just go on and do your thing, right? So, yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, having that big picture goal in mind is definitely great to get the momentum and keep it moving forward. So that's the mission. And then on the other side, though, there is the personal journey that someone has to go through. And even with these negative comments, it's like, look, it's not an assassination of your character, because these people, they legitimately don't know you. They're basing their opinion on a snapshot. Maybe it's a video, but it's not an overall grade of your life's work. But then the other piece too that comes up. So I have a course, Confident on Video, which we did a call today, and one person was bringing up that they were fearing putting themselves, all their negative stories were coming up because someone in the past told them that they weren't good on video. And I had a call with her, and I said, look, at some level, though, you believe this. Otherwise, it wouldn't impact you. And I'm not saying it's 100%, but you have to accept responsibility. I go, how much power are you giving this one person's opinion? And it's, that's the thing. Because if you didn't believe it at all, it wouldn't affect you. So at some level, there's an insecurity, and they touched on it, and it's bringing it up for you. But that's a piece for you to really check yourself and go, okay, am I going to give up on my dream because one person's opinion?
That's a good point.
It's perfect segue there, Lucas. Tell us more about, what you're doing today. We've talked a lot about, where you came from, how you got here, what's going on. But as a professional coach, and maybe just clarify sort of exactly what you are and what you do. But I know you've got some different programs that you run. Tell us and our listeners a little more about exactly what sort of programs you run, what kind of coaching you do, and how you can help people and who you can help.
Yeah, so coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs, business owners, that's my target market. And because, right now we're in a very different place. So my main program has been Speak with Confidence, which is a 3-day seminar live in person, but the hotel called me about 2 weeks ago and they said, look, we're closed until the end of May. So I'm like, okay, so there will be no live events for a while. All right. And so I launched an online course, and it's funny. I had a call with my business coach on Tuesday, so 2 days ago. And he said, well, it just took a global pandemic for you to finally launch that online course you've always wanted to. And I said, yeah, that's true. And I'm loving it. I really am. I'm loving it because I have people from all over the world signing up. I don't have to hear about travel, about planes, about what hotels are good. It just makes it so much easier. And so that's called Confident on Video. Now, why that's important is because in today's world, like right now, with the social isolation, if you're not sharing your message online, you are absolutely invisible. Your business does not exist. So it's an essential skill. And that's why I believe this course, I'm just in week 2 of my launch course. And the response has been tremendous and the results have been awesome. And because I think in today's world, you literally have no choice. People are signing up because they've known they've needed to for years, but now you literally do not have a choice. Well, you do. You can sit back and watch and not put yourself out there and then
not do it.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, you have a choice, but it's not a choice that's going to be beneficial for your long-term success. Right.
Mm-hmm. So with everything that's happening right now, Lucas, it's supposed to be a live event, but now you're gonna transition to doing it online. Do you have getting any help? Are you getting any help from a team, or do you have a team who helps you, put everything together?
Good segue into what you do. I love it. I do actually. I'm starting to build a team. Mm-hmm. It's exciting. It's bringing up some stuff for me because that means giving up control and doing things. I mean, it's just an adjustment. So I'm seeing the benefits of a team and starting to build because especially with this course going online, things are kicking up. So it's definitely an asset. It's definitely an asset now to have a team.
Yeah.
No, it's a recurring theme of a lot of meetings that we have with prospective clients, or a lot of the stuff we do on Facebook and through our podcast, is going into when you're building your business, whether you're a retail store and you're hiring physical people to stock the shelves and clerks, or whether you're an entrepreneur building an online presence. As you're hiring employees, as you're building your team, is you have to have trust and confidence in those people. And if you don't, if you can't let go, if you can't have the confidence that they're going to do what you need them to do and that they're going to do it well, that's just going to cause you more stress than trying to do everything yourself. I've talked to entrepreneur, business owner after business owner after business owner. Everybody seems inherently capable of managing and hiring and supervising physical employees because you can see the effect of their work immediately. The shelves are stocked, the lineup. People are paying, and that you can see it right away. But as soon as they're dealing with an at distance team or virtual people, we have this fear of, well, are they really working? And I think we're seeing a lot of this with supervisors in corporate worlds where their staff are now working from home. So they're not in the cubicle down the aisle. They're at their house out in the suburbs. How do I know that they're working? How do I know that they're not watching Netflix all day and just putting on a shirt to do, they're checking with me at the end of the day? We see a lot of that happening. And to be successful, you have to trust your people. And that's one of the big things that I really learned in my years in different corporate environments is you have to let go and trust, and they're going to make mistakes, and you need to deal with that and coach and correct and let them go out and make some new mistakes. It's more difficult, I guess, when it's at distance. So it's good to hear you that you're letting go of some stuff and you're finally able to pass some of that on. So
it's kind of like a secret ingredient to success, right? When you start to learn how to let go of some things, I always say this, focus on your strength and then delegate your weakness. And that's exactly what you're doing right now. There is one thing that you mentioned that I am interested, and I guess this is my last question for you, Lucas. You are a coach. You yourself is a coach, but you also have a coach.
Yeah.
So what is the importance of of having a coach?
Well, I mean, I think everybody needs. Well, I mean, I think one thing is everyone's got certain blind spots where you just don't know, don't know what you don't know, and so having somebody there to just illuminate the areas for improvement, run ideas past. I know with my business coach, it's about the big picture vision at times. Like, what's the structure? Where are we going with this? And I think it's important to pick somebody that's down the road from you, so they've been where you've been, and you're going in that direction, because that's the whole thing. You can shave off years of failures and mistakes, and so I think obviously I'm biased towards it, but I think coaching is, I think it's a great investment, because why make the mistakes when someone else has made them for you? It's like, I'd rather just learn from somebody else's mistakes and then be able to
cut the journey short. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't want to struggle. I've done enough struggling.
No, absolutely. It's, I'm a big fan of coaching and having not just necessarily one coach.
Yes.
I've been in businesses where I've had a coach for the technical aspect of my business, but I've had a completely separate, different coach for my mindset component.
Yes.
And it's the one, the mindset coach could do nothing to help me with the technical part of my business. But
you also need
the technical person was able to do that, but I would never go to them as a mindset type of, how to get my mind framed the right way. So it's not always just one person that you need or you should seek out. It can be multiple.
Get specialists.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. Suwa Trong, I don't know if you know him. He made a comment here. Let it go. Let it go sounds like a good song title.
Yeah, of course.
So I guess
Sue's stuck at home watching Frozen.
I hope you guys, for those who are watching us on Facebook and listening on our show, I hope you guys found some nuggets here. It's a very good topic. It's interesting. I hope we had more time to really get to know Lucas more. But before we wrap this up, Lucas, where can we find you?
levelupliving.com. Head on over to levelupliving.com. Check it out. You'll see my information about the live events that aren't happening right now. It'll be great.
Which will turn out to be an online thing pretty soon, right?
Yeah, you know what? I will. I should add a tab to it for the online course. Next launch will be in probably 4 weeks, so I got a bit of time.
You know what? You have to look at the brighter side. I guess, from whatever is happening right now, there will always be a silver lining. So we will learn from what we are experiencing, and it will be bright at the end of the tunnel, right? Yeah. So just keep on hoping and, be positive. All right. So Lucas, again, thank you so much for being on our show. I know you're a busy person, but you took the time to share your expertise with us, your stories with us, and we really thank you for that. So again, guys, for those who haven't subscribed yet to our show, How to Build a Team podcast, please do. If you find it valuable, please give us a comment, just give us some love in here, and we will catch you again on our next show. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.